The Windsor Framework, hailed by Rishi Sunak as the solution to the Northern Ireland Protocol's issues, is not perfect. Critics and commentators have pointed out various flaws and say there are questions regarding how exactly it'll work. But the director of UK in a Changing Europe, Anand Menon, says it's a good deal. I spoke to him earlier. Why was Rishi Sunak able to get the deal through while previous negotiators were unable to?
I think there's several reasons. Firstly, Rishi Sunak wanted a deal. He doesn't want a standoff or conflict with the European Union, and I suspect, certainly in the case of Boris Johnson, tension with the European Union was something he considered to be good politically. I think also the European Commission has learnt some lessons about how the protocol was affecting day-to-day life in Northern Ireland and has altered its position as a result. So I think both sides have shifted a bit from when we had standoffs over the protocol in the past.
It looks like there will be more cooperation between the EU and the UK. On Monday, EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen said the UK and the EU will consult each other when making new laws. It's an interesting development. Senior research fellow Jill Rutter says it puts the retained EU law bill, that's the bill seeking to scrap EU laws in the UK, in an uncertain position.
One, of course, of the problems with the retained EU law bill is the timetable, because a huge amount of retained EU law is subject to this sunset clause. If you really keep the deadline of the end of this year, it's very difficult how you could have really meaningful consultations about significant swathes of that. So we'll have to see how the government intends to put that into practice. That's one of the big unanswered questions from this week, is how does this interact with that retained EU law bill, which is still going through Parliament.
Rutter said the Windsor Framework doesn't mean Brexit is done, but that it does end some of the unfinished business left over from the UK's exit. The storm-and break part of the deal gives Northern Ireland parties a way to raise issues about new EU laws. If Westminster does veto the EU law, the EU is then allowed to take so-called remedial measures. Menon said we'll have to wait and see exactly how this will work, but did speculate possibilities.
The EU will at a minimum take measures to ensure the integrity of its market. That might be by blocking the sale of certain products, it might be by imposing counter-trade measures against us in the hope that we change our mind. But actually, I think it is quite unlikely that the break is going to be used that often, if at all. As to how in practice it will be used, we'll have to wait and see. Though bear in mind that before we get to an EU retaliation, there is a period of negotiation between the two sides where it is hoped that outstanding issues and disagreements can be resolved.
The storm-and break is only meant to be used for non-trivial matters. Speaking earlier at a press conference, Rutter said that day-to-day life in Northern Ireland was interfered with by the Northern Ireland Protocol, but that the impact of this new special arrangement was actually quite small for the EU.
But I think the other thing that the EU recognised was, apart from Ireland's significant things, that Northern Ireland is incredibly small, and that actually having a slightly different system operating in Northern Ireland wasn't a massive risk to the integrity of the single market in the way perhaps that they initially feared.
Menon and Rutter both said the Windsor Framework is a good deal. They say it won't satisfy everyone, but that the day-to-day running of life will likely improve for Northern Irish citizens, and that this popular support may change the minds of unionists. DUP leader Sir Geoffrey Donaldson said on Monday that their views have been vindicated. Rutter said this suggests that he may be open to working with the New Deal and hence open up the government of Northern Ireland again. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.